My husband, influenced by his mother, demanded a paternity test, so I agreed to take one. The results stunned everyone. This might get a bit long, and I apologize for any formatting issues I'm posting from my phone. I'm a 28-year-old woman, married to my husband, let's call him Mark 30M, for 2 years now, and we've been together for 6 years total. Before diving into what happened recently, I should give you a little background. My mother-in-law has never exactly been warm toward me, but early on I brushed it off. I was young, naive, and assumed that's just how mothers act with their sons' girlfriends. Since I moved out of my own family's home at 16 and have had minimal contact with them since, I didn't have much of a sense of what a normal family dynamic should look like. Looking back, everything that's happened lately has clearly been building up for a while, and honestly, I feel completely lost about what to do next. When I first met Mark's parents, we went out for dinner together. At first, his mom seemed friendly enough, but throughout the night, she kept slipping in comments that felt sharp and passive-aggressive. Things like, "So, do you have your own job or are you just spending Mark's money? You have such a beautiful face. Have you ever thought about losing a little weight? You'd be absolutely stunning. You're a lovely girl, but honestly, I don't think anyone will ever be good enough for my baby boy." I know, there were 1,000 red flags, and I ignored them all. But at the time, I was head over heels for Mark. She always said these things with a sugary sweet tone, like she was joking, and I didn't want to seem overly sensitive. During the first few years we dated, her behavior stayed relatively mild, mostly snide remarks about my weight, appearance, or suggestions that I was only with Mark for his money. For the record, we work in the same field and make similar salaries. Mark does earn a little more, but not by enough to even think about something like gold digging. At first, her comments got under my skin, and I would bring them up to Mark. He always defended me and repeatedly told her to knock it off, but ultimately, he chalked it up to her being a little overprotective, especially since he's her only child. We didn't see them very often anyway. Both of us were busy with work and lived about an hour away. Things escalated, though, after Mark proposed. I won't bore you with every detail, but our engagement and wedding were a nightmare thanks to her. The night we announced our engagement, we took his parents out to dinner. When his mom saw the ring, she completely flipped. She immediately asked Mark how much he had spent on it, and when he told her, her face turned a deep shade of red. For context, the ring was expensive, but not irresponsibly so. We both work in a high-paying industry and are very fortunate financially. It was well within his means. Still, she went off, saying I didn't deserve a ring that nice and complaining that Mark had never bought her anything that expensive, and that, as his mother, she was the one who truly deserved it. She even said she doubted Mark was serious about me, despite us having been together for 3 years by that point. Mark immediately shut her down, telling her not to be ridiculous. But that was only the beginning. Mark dropped the subject after that. But the dinner was already ruined, and everyone ended up leaving early. His mom didn't speak to him for 3 weeks afterward. Eventually, she sent him a text apologizing, claiming she was just scared of losing her little boy. While we were planning the wedding, she kept interfering, trying to change the guest list, meddling with vendors, and yes, she even showed up to the ceremony wearing a white dress. Through it all, Mark had my back. We had set up passwords with all our vendors specifically to keep her out, and when she tried to tamper with them, Mark made sure to have everything reset. Our first year of marriage was wonderful. We both wanted kids, so we started trying to conceive right away. Things only started to shift once I got pregnant at the end of last year. We decided to surprise Mark's parents with the news by bringing a little gift basket to their house: champagne, chocolate, and a tiny plaque that read Grandma. When they opened it and realized what it meant, Mark's mother turned to me and, half laughing, said, "Are you sure it's really Mark's baby?" I was floored, but she just laughed it off like it was some harmless joke, and the night went on. That's when her comments about my appearance started getting even worse. "You've really put on some weight, haven't you? Better be careful or Mark's eyes might start wandering." When I was pregnant with Mark, I stayed slim the whole time. "You should try a little harder to look good for my baby." She would randomly bring up women she knew, who had passed off other men's children as their husbands. and it always felt like the stories were aimed at me. She'd joke about how she hoped I wouldn't pull something like that, constantly hinting that I might have cheated. I told her repeatedly that her comments upset me, but she brushed me off, saying I was being too sensitive and couldn't take a joke. Around the same time, she began mentioning Mark's high school ex, Lauren 30F, all the time going on and on about how slim and delicate she was, how perfect she would have been for Mark because they were both so fit. The combination of her jabs and my pregnancy hormones broke me down more times than I can count. In the beginning, Mark would defend me. He'd tell his mom off whenever she made comments, but that only seemed to make her angrier. By the time I hit my 4th or 5th month, though, I noticed a change. Mark started pulling away. He began spending more and more weekends at his mom's house without me, even when I begged him to stay because I was sick or in pain. He stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings, stopped hugging me, barely even touched me anymore. If I asked what was wrong, he'd snap at me, saying I was being clingy or annoying, or blame my pregnancy hormones for making me crazy. I eventually stopped pushing and tried to focus on myself and the baby. But deep down, I knew his mother had gotten into his head. When I finally gave birth about a month ago, Mark's mom demanded to be in the delivery room. I didn't want her there. I desperately didn't, but Mark told me flat out that if I didn't allow her, he wouldn't be there either. Completely worn down, emotionally and physically, I gave in. Labor was brutal and complicated, but the moment I finally held my baby, the moment I held my son in my arms was still the happiest moment of my life, and honestly, I'd go through everything again just to have him. But right after they cleaned him up and brought him back to me, Mark turned to me and said the words I'll never forget. I want a paternity test. At first, I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. I was stunned and kept asking why. I had never cheated on him, never given him any reason to doubt me. I worked remotely, meaning I was home almost all the time, while he still had to go into the office. On top of that, my pregnancy had been so rough and high risk that even leaving the house for errands was hard. There was simply no opportunity, even if I had wanted to, which I didn't. Still, he insisted. He said he needed to be sure the baby was his, and didn't want to pay to raise another man's child. Hearing him speak about our son that way, like he was something shameful, broke me in a way I can't even describe. But I agreed to the paternity test anyway because I had nothing to hide. 3 weeks ago, we got the results, and just like the title suggests, they came back negative. I knew immediately there had to be a mistake. There had to be. But Mark wouldn't even look at me. Without a word, he packed his bags and left, moving back in with his mother and abandoning me at home with our barely 2-week-old newborn. I called and texted nonstop, begging him to talk to me, begging him to understand that something wasn't right, even offering to take another test. He ignored every message. Finally, about a week ago, he called. I was emotionally destroyed by then, exhausted, terrified, and desperately needing help with our baby. Instead of any comfort, Mark said, "My mom was right. I can't believe I married a woman like you." And that's when it all clicked. His mother had been feeding him lies about me, poisoning him against me all this time. I was sure of it. Since Mark wasn't responding to me anymore, I decided to call his mom myself. When she answered, I told her I needed to talk to Mark, that he couldn't just abandon his wife and newborn after everything we had been through. She laughed, actually laughed, then told me Mark wasn't home and that I deserved what I got. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me, or worse, let them ever hurt my son the way they were hurting me. I told her straight, I don't know what you think about me, but I never cheated. That test result was wrong. And that's when everything came out. She laughed again and admitted, casually, like it was no big deal, that she had tampered with the test. She had somehow submitted the wrong sample, making sure the results came back negative. Why? Because she didn't think I deserved Mark. She said she wasn't going to let me baby trap him and that he would always choose her over some woman. I was stunned silent. She ranted on, bragging about how she always wanted Mark with someone worthy, someone pretty enough, someone like Lauren, his high school ex. She wanted to drive me out so she could push Mark back toward the kind of woman she thought he deserved. The paternity test had been her plan all along. just to destroy our marriage. I didn't say another word. I just hung up the phone. And now, I'm numb. Completely and utterly numb. Honestly, I still can't wrap my head around how a grown woman could behave like this. After the call with my mother-in-law, I immediately texted Mark. I told him everything she confessed to and urged him to ask her directly. Now, I don't know what to do next. Should I get another paternity test? Part of me thinks I should talk to a lawyer too. But I'm worried about making everything even more complicated. And if he ever decides he wants to come back, should I even consider taking him back after everything he put me through? Any advice would mean a lot. I'm completely lost. Update. Just a quick update for everyone who asked. First of all, thank you so much to everyone who took the time to comment and offer advice. I never imagined this post would reach so many people. When I went to bed after posting, I woke up to almost 900 comments. I've read every single one, even if I can't reply to them all. So I wanted to answer some common questions here. As I mentioned before, I'm not close to my own family. I haven't spoken to my parents in years. They didn't even come to my wedding. And I doubt they even know I have a baby. My family is originally from Minnesota, but I moved to the East Coast when I left home at 16. I supported myself through high school and college by working multiple jobs. I met Mark during college and have been working remotely ever since. I don't have many close friends nearby either. But I do have a coworker, let's call her Katie, who lives not too far from me. We usually only text occasionally, but when I told her a little about what was going on, she immediately offered to come over and keep me company. When she got to my house, I was a complete mess. I hadn't showered in a week, the house was chaos, and I was holding a crying 2-week-old newborn in my arms. I completely broke down crying the moment she walked through the door, which was a little awkward, considering we weren't that close. But Katie was amazing. She sat with me, listened, and when I couldn't find the strength to explain everything, I just showed her my original post. Since then, she's been an absolute angel, watching my son while I finally cleaned up the house, ate some real food, and had my first hot shower in 2 weeks. Having someone here who's truly on my side feels like such a huge relief after everything I've been through. A few people also asked about my father-in-law. There's not much to say. He's always been quiet and polite toward me. He usually ignores my mother-in-law's drama, and I honestly have no idea what he really thinks about all this. And no, my mother-in-law's hatred of me doesn't have anything to do with race or religion. We're all white and none of us are particularly religious. If I had to guess, it's probably because I'm a little taller and bigger than the women she always pictured for her son. Mark is really into fitness and the gym. And while I'm healthy and work out too, I'm not exactly petite like some of his exes were. That's the only reason I can come up with. Lastly, I'm contacting a lawyer today. There's no way I can ever look at Mark the same again after everything. Deep down, I already know I want a divorce. I've also been saving and screenshotting every text and message I've ever exchanged with both Mark and his mother, just in case I need it later. I've decided that I'll be getting another paternity test, and once I have the results, I'll hand them to Mark while serving him divorce papers. He still hasn't replied to my text, and honestly, at this point, I don't care anymore. I don't even want my son to have someone like Mark as a father. The fact that he abandoned both of us without even having a real conversation first, it just makes me furious. I can't imagine ever letting him near me or my baby again. Sorry if this post feels a little scattered, it's just been a lot. But for now, that's where things stand. Update 2. Hi everyone. It's been a very eventful couple of months, and I've gotten so many comments and private messages asking for an update. So here it is. It's been 2 months since I last posted. About 2 days after my first update, Mark showed up at my house. Thanks to Katie, I had finally been able to clean myself up, clean the house, and meet with a lawyer to discuss divorce. Mark turned up early one morning, completely unannounced. He looked awful, unshaven, hollow-eyed, like he hadn't slept or stopped crying in days. I wasn't expecting to see him. For a moment, we just stared at each other in silence. Then he broke down, sobbing, apologizing over and over. I know I said I wanted nothing more to do with him, and I meant it. But after loving someone for 6 years, it's hard to turn off all those feelings at once. Hearing him apologize, it felt good. It felt like something I had desperately needed to hear. I let him come inside. We sat down in the living room while I held our baby. Mark couldn't stop crying. At one point, he asked if he could hold his son. All the rage I had bottled up came flooding back in that moment. I told him no. He just nodded quietly and didn't argue. After he managed to pull himself together, he asked if we could talk. I agreed, because honestly, I needed to hear what he had to say. Thanks to a commenter's advice, I recorded the conversation on my phone. Here's what Mark told me. After I had texted him about what his mother confessed to me, he didn't want to believe it, but it kept gnawing at him. Eventually, he confronted his mother. At first, she denied everything. She claimed I was trying to baby trap him for money and isolate him from his family. But here's where things finally cracked open. Mark's father, who by then was completely fed up with his wife's insanity, stepped in and told Mark the truth. Turns out, one of mother-in-law's nephews works at the lab where the paternity test was processed. She convinced him to tamper with the results to show that Mark wasn't the father. Mark said it felt like his entire world had collapsed when he realized what had really happened, how horribly he had treated me and his own son, and how manipulative his mother truly was. Hearing that was honestly satisfying. But that wasn't all. Apparently, his mother still tried to justify her actions even after getting caught. She told Mark outright that she thought I was too large and womanly for her perfect, handsome boy. She wanted him to divorce me and get back together with his high school ex, Lauren, who, according to her, was prettier and more suitable. Mother-in-law also admitted she was jealous. She thought Mark was giving me and our unborn child too much attention, and that it was taking away precious time she thought should be spent with her. And about all those weekends, Mark went over to her house while I was 5 months pregnant. Yeah, on one of those weekends, one where I was too sick to go, she actually invited Lauren over to ... It turns out, during my pregnancy, while I was struggling through some of the hardest months of my life, Mark's mother had been whispering poison into his ear. She convinced him that I was being distant and irritable because I was cheating on him, and that I was trying to trap him into raising another man's child. Meanwhile, Lauren, who is tiny, conventionally very pretty, and apparently willing to play along, flirted with him constantly every time they saw each other. Mark admitted that he fell for their manipulation. He started seeing Lauren behind my back because, in his words, he missed feeling wanted. So the whole time I was being faithful, struggling through a high-risk pregnancy, he was the one having an affair. He swore up and down that they never slept together, and that it was just dating and kissing, as if that somehow made it better. He said he ended it with her about a week before I went into labor because he felt guilty. After telling me everything, Mark begged me to forgive him. He promised he would do anything to fix this, that he would cut his mother out of our lives forever if that's what I wanted. And I'll be honest, it was tempting. For a moment, I almost gave in. But then I looked down at my baby and remembered everything. How Mark had let his mother disrespect me for years, without setting a single boundary. How he betrayed me, lied to me, abandoned me when I was at my most vulnerable. How he didn't even ask me about the test, just left. I told him that after everything he had done, after how much he had hurt me during my pregnancy and after our son's birth, I could never trust him again. I didn't see him the same way anymore, and I never would. He cried some more but eventually agreed to leave and booked a hotel nearby. Before he left, I told him I wanted a real paternity test done, and this time, there would be no funny business. He protested at first, but I insisted. We scheduled it for the next day. 2 weeks later, the results came back, and shocker, he's the father. Cue another dramatic meltdown from Mark. And honestly, I felt a little vindicated. Last week, the divorce papers were finalized and served. After 2 months of hell, it's finally moving forward. Mark tried to suggest couples counseling before making any major decisions, but I was already 100% done. There was no saving this marriage. I asked for a 50-50 division of assets and primary custody of our son. My lawyer thinks it should go through without any issues, especially with the records I have showing how Mark treated me and abandoned us. Mark agreed not to fight the custody terms, and he'll be getting supervised visits on weekends. And yes, his mother is absolutely banned from being anywhere near my baby. Father-in-law actually reached out to me on the day Mark was served to apologize. He admitted he should have stepped in sooner. I forgave him. From what little I know of him, he's a decent man who was also stuck dealing with that nightmare of a woman. Apparently, he's planning to leave her too. As for my former mother-in-law, she's been blocked since the day Mark showed up at my door, and I intend to keep it that way. I'm planning to move out of our apartment soon, and while I'm sad and overwhelmed at times, I'm also hopeful for the first time in a long time. It's just me and my son now, and we're going to be okay. Finally, I just want to thank everyone who reached out, offered advice, or even just sent a kind word. I'm so incredibly grateful. You helped me get through some of the darkest days of my life. Thank you. Update 3. Wow, I almost forgot about this account. It's been a year since I last posted. After everything that happened, I deleted Reddit off my phone and honestly just moved on with my life. This will be a short update for those who asked to hear how things turned out. My divorce is finally going to be official next month. The proceedings dragged out longer than I expected because Mark decided he didn't want me to have the majority of custody after all, and he pushed back against the supervised visitation too. But my lawyer is a beast. Thanks to the recordings I had of him admitting everything he did during my pregnancy and after, the odds are still very much in my favor. It looks like I'm going to get what I asked for. My baby is now 14 months old, and he's the sweetest little boy. We moved across the state and have a cozy little apartment. Thanks to my job, I'm able to work remotely and spend most of my time with him. I've also started to rebuild my own life too. I joined a book club paid membership, so it's a bit more serious and I've made some new friends there. Life hasn't been easy between the divorce, moving, and adjusting to parenting alone, but it's also been lighter. I feel so much better without Mark and his toxic mother hanging over me. Looking back now, I realize I should have seen the red flags from the beginning. The way he always put his mother's feelings before his own pregnant wife's. That should have told me everything I needed to know. But you live and you learn. And I promise myself, I will never ignore those signs again. I don't know if I'm ready to even think about another relationship. Right now, my focus is entirely on being the best mom I can be for my son. I probably won't update again after this, but I'm in such a better place now than I was a year ago. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone who wished me well and supported me through this. I made it, and we're doing okay.
And here's what I'll tell you at the very end. You watched this story to the end. It means only one thing. This video format suits you. You should subscribe to the channel to continue listening to similar stories in this format.